Hey guys, welcome back to my beginner tutorial series on Lua scripting in Roblox. And today we're going to be talking about values in the game, specifically values you can assign to a player like cash, kills, XP, etc. So we'll hop right into it. Values, as I'm referring to them, are physical manifestations in the workspace of a variable that you could create in a script. So if you just hit the plus here and type in value, you can see there's bool values, which is a simple true, false. If it's checked, it's true. If it's unchecked, it's false. You have other values like brick color value, which records, let's see, obviously the brick color of whatever you want to apply this value to. And we'll just run through the rest real quickly. C-frame, color, int value, number value, which are different. Int is for like a whole number, an integer. Numbers are for decimal numbers. In other languages, they're called like double. It just means that they have a decimal. They can be used as decimals. So object value, ray, string value is pretty useful. It allows you to type in a string. So like a player's name, for example, like Cedric, something like that. And vector3. So these are important for storing information about players or objects in the game that you want both your client and your server scripts to be able to access, because as I talked about in one of our first tutorial videos, local scripts can't access server values and server scripts cannot access local client values. So this is kind of an intermediate way that you can assign variables to players or items that you want to be saved so you can keep track of them in the future. And when we get into databases and data storage, it will be useful to save data into an external database on the Roblox website, create values within a player, and then, sorry about that, and then populate those values with the values from your database. So that's kind of confusing to think about right now, but we will tackle that in a later tutorial on data storage. But for right now, what we're going to do is add a script, and we're going to say local kills equals instance, because it's an instance within the workspace, dot new, and then parentheses, and you can make any instance you want. You can make a part, you can make, anything you can add into the game, character meshes, click detectors, anything, any instance in the game you can make. But right now we're just focusing on values. So kill values, it's an integer, right? It goes up by whole numbers. You can't have half of a kill. So we're going to deal with whole numbers here. We're going to say int value. Now this int value has been created, but it has nowhere to go. It doesn't know where to spawn in. So you're going to say kills, which is the variable name for this new instance, dot parent equals game dot workspace. And we want to name it something so we can recognize it in the workspace. And we're going to say kills dot name because it has a name property equals kills. And that's just a string value. No matter what type of value that you've created, the name property of that value is always going to be a string. So let's just see what happens. We run the game, and as you can see, a new value has been created called kills, and it's in the workspace, and its starting value is 0. Now, if we want a player to be assigned this variable, this new value, we can do a function called game.players.player added, and see how this is adding it for me. As I type it, player added is an event of the object players, which is a service in the game. Open parentheses, close parentheses. And let's go ahead and zoom in. There we go. That's better. And what you can do is this function will automatically pass a value called player, or whatever you want. You can call it anything you want, X, Y, ABC. It doesn't matter. But for ease of understanding, just call it player, and it will grab the name of the player that's just joined the game. Now this function only fires every time a player joins the game, not every time they respawn, because what it's doing is it's tracking when a new player value is added into this player's services, and that obviously only happens once when the player joins the game. So we're going to copy this, we're going to paste it, okay, and now what we can do is kills.parent, instead of being workspace, can just be player. So let's go ahead and test it. Press play. And here I am running around. Players, Sejurak kills is inside of my player object in the player's service. But there are two different kinds of Sejuraks in the game right now. There's also a physical Sejurak in the workspace that has all of my parts in it. But typically when you're creating values to be assigned to a player, you put them in this arbitrary non-physical players object, right? And it's easy to keep track of them that way. So now you have kills, and we'll say every time you kill something, your kills go up. So an easy way to represent this is I will go ahead and I will make a brick, and we will call this kill brick, and we are going to add a script into the kill brick, and we're just going to name the script kill, and we are going to say script.parent touched connect function hit to see what hit it. So if you remember, we've kind of done something like this in the past with if statements, and we will say if not hit.parent, then return end. So if there's no parent of the hit of the part that's touched this part, then forget it, it's not what we want. If not hit.parent find first child humanoid, so we made sure it has a parent. Now we're making sure the parent has a child inside of it called humanoid, which means it's a player or an NPC or something if you create one of those. Then return n. So if you don't have one of those, end the function, we don't care. Now, everything has been accounted for, so we're going to say hit. Okay, so since like what I was talking about earlier, the physical representation of your player is in the workspace, and that's what's touching this part, it's going to be a different name, or rather a different object than the player, your player in players. Yeah, since the player name in players is going to be leading you to a different object than the player in the workspace, what you need to do is you need to reference game.players, the service players, as opposed to workspace. And what you're going to do is use brackets. Do not use parentheses. Okay, use brackets and just do hit.parent.name, because you want the name of the player so that the studio can, or game can find the name of the player that corresponds to the hit part here, if that makes sense. So we'll say game.players hit.parent.name dot kills dot value equals, and then we will copy this to get the current value, and we're just going to add 1 to it. And we're going to add a debounce because I don't want this to trigger a bunch of times. So I'll show you what a debounce does, what it is. So local killing, just make a variable called killing, and we will say if killing, then return end, and we're going to make this false. So if the killing has been triggered, then just end the function. And so now what we're going to do is say killing equals true right as it touches the, or adds the value, and we're going to say wait 2 seconds, killing equals false. So what that does is it prevents spam. So you can't just keep hitting this brick over and over and over and over and keep increasing like crazy. It has a 2-second cooldown every time you touch it because of this true and false value. And this condition right here, making sure that killing is false before it fires. So an easier way to do this also is just to assign this to a variable, but I want to keep it like this so you can see the syntax. Obviously, you could do like local kills equals game.players hit.parent.name kills.value, and then you can just reference kills equals kills plus 1 or something like that, but we're not going to do that right now. I want to just show you what this will do. So I'm in the game, I have my kills value, and I'm going to touch, boop, and it goes up by 1. Touch, 2. Nothing happens because I try to do it within 2 seconds. I touch again, 3. Nothing, 4. And so you can do this kind of thing with any value, with any resource or variable you can think of, really. You just have to program it yourself. So if you want to earn money or fruit or collect coins or something like that by touching them as a brick or completing a certain action that you script in the game, it will you're able to store that information through these values. And an easy way to store it is let me go here, and we will do local folder equals instance dot new folder, and folder dot parent equals player, and folder dot name equals values. And then what we can do is kills dot parent is folder, and then we can say copy this, and we'll say like deaths dot name, and we will call it deaths. And then we can do the same thing with, let's say, cash. And we don't want to deal with cents, so we'll keep it an int value, just full dollars or whatever your currency in the game is, cash. And so now you join the game, wait for it to load. Okay, check players, and you see you have a values folder with cash, deaths, and kills. Easy. Now, so let's say every time player.character added connect function, every time the player respawns, we can say player.values, because that's the name of the folder, dot deaths dot value equals same thing plus 1. Connect function, and then of course you can pass the character if you want, but we don't need that in this instance. We're just detecting that they've died, and every time they die, their deaths is going to go up by 1. And to make this super fast, we're just going to take toolbox, we'll go to models, say lava, just grab something that will kill us really quickly, test, play. Now, as you can see, my values are 1 because I just joined the game. I'm dead. I respawn and my death value is 2. Now, obviously, if you don't want players to start the game with 1 death, you can add a little if statement, like if their folder doesn't exist yet, or some way to check if it's their first time spawning in the game, then you can just set it to 0 remotely, and then every time the character is added from that point on, you can add 1. Okay, so that pretty much covers the basics of player values, of values that you can add to the game. You don't have to just do this with players. You can do this with anything. You can use string values, you can use Boolean values and objects to see if they're being used or not. It's just a tool that you can use to keep track of different circumstances, different data, anything you really want. These are just some examples of things you can do: kills, deaths, cash, etc. So I hope this helped you guys out. Again, go into Studio, test it out yourself with different kinds of values, test different functions for incrementing these values, and in a later tutorial, I'll teach you how to save them permanently so that players who rejoin the game can keep their values, but that's more advanced. So it probably won't be in this series, but eventually I will make a tutorial on that. So thank you guys for watching. Leave a comment if you have any questions. Make sure to like and subscribe and tune in for more. See you guys next time.